I'm Emmett Loverde, and tonight I'm talking to you about The Brutalist. The Brutalist arrives just in time for Oscar season. It's about 3 hours and 15 minutes long, and it stars Adrien Brody and Felicity Jones and Guy Pearce, and it is directed by Brady Corbett, and it's getting a lot of attention on the awards circuit. A lot of critics are putting it on their 10 best lists, and I saw it. There were things about it that I liked. Very powerful scenes. I can't say enough about the acting and some beautiful photography. I mean, some very good filmmaking went into this movie. However, there are enough holes and problems for me to say this film does not deserve the accolades that it's getting. It deserves something because it's certainly not a piece of garbage and it's certainly not amateur work. But there's a lot of failures in the movie. The film is about an architect who flees the devastation of World War II from Hungary, and he ends up in the United States. He's separated from his wife and his niece. He goes to live with a cousin in Pennsylvania, and he starts working for the guy at his furniture shop. And the man is living with his American wife, Audrey. The character's name is Laszlo. That's played by Adrien Brody. Anyway, Laszlo is building furniture for his cousin, Attila. It's out of the ordinary furniture. It's kind of stark and industrial. Attila gets a job, renovation of a library in the mansion of a very wealthy gentleman. And the order comes from this gentleman's son. Basically, it's you guys got about a week to renovate this library, and my dad's coming back, so you got to be done, and it's going to be a surprise for him. He's going to love it. Adrien Brody comes up with some very innovative flourishes for this library. And as they're finishing it, the young man's father comes home, the one that they're doing the library for. And this gentleman is played by Guy Pearce. So Guy Pearce comes in and he blows his top and says, "What have you done to my house? Get off my property. I'm going to sick the dogs on you." And of course, he refuses to pay them. It's a disaster. Laszlo returns to Attila's shop where he's also living. There's a weird scene where Laszlo is left alone for a few minutes with Attila's American wife, and they have a stilted conversation I really wasn't completely clear the meaning of. And then the next thing you know, Attila is kicking Laszlo out of his house, saying that Attila's wife has accused Laszlo of flirting with her or making advances toward her. And so he has to get the hell out. Laszlo is left to live at a church. I sat down to watch this movie believing that it was a true story. There's no one to blame for that. That's just my own mistake. I saw the publicity for it and people talking about it, and I said, oh, this is about a famous Hungarian architect. I thought I'd heard of the brutalist architectural movement, style of buildings and that kind of thing. So I just thought it was a factual thing. I didn't realize that it was entirely fictional. When I sat through the film, I was thinking, wow, there sure are a lot of leaps in time and leaps in logic, things that are left unexplained, suggested but not made clear. But I said, well, that's the nature of doing a historical film, is sometimes you don't have all the details, but you share what you do have. And then after I saw the film, I found out that it was fictional. Now, it may have been based on real characters. It may have been based on bits and pieces of the lives of one or more people who actually lived. But the bottom line is these people were telling a fictional story. They had leaps in logic and they had pieces left out that hurt the story, that kind of ruined things. First of all, there was no follow-up as far as why the wife accused Adrien Brody's character of making advances. In other words, was she making advances toward him and she felt rejected by him, and so he had somehow dishonored her by not succumbing to her advances? It was unclear, and the thing is, it was dropped. We never saw the character again. Then Adrien Brody's character gets involved with using heroin, and it's mentioned that he's got some kind of a problem with his nose. It's been injured through some sort of brutality during the war. Nothing we saw, so I don't know. He just says, oh, my nose has been injured. So he has to take the heroin because of the pain in his nose. Okay. Then we have the return of the businessman, played by Guy Pearce, into Adrien Brody's life. And basically, this guy tracks Adrien Brody down at another job where he's shoveling coal and says, "Hey, I was totally wrong. Your library has been the focus of some architectural publications. Basically, a lot of people think it's fantastic, and everybody's very interested in finding out more about you and your work. So I want to hire you to do a bunch more work for me. I'm going to pay you that money that I refused to pay you, 2 years ago." So it sounds great. And then, of course, it's suggested, because it's not made clear, it's suggested that Adrien Brody basically runs out and uses some of the money, which was about $2,000, which is quite a lot of money in the 1940s, uses it to buy a bunch of heroin. Does that mean he is now homeless? Does that mean, I don't know what the implications are. Anyway, because the story keeps going forward with, leaving things unsaid and unexplained. But Guy Pearce's character hires Laszlo to design and build for him a center of culture. It includes a library and a gymnasium and a church. There's controversy during the building of it because some of the people in the town where it's going to be built object to its look. The important detail is that Guy Pearce's character introduces Laszlo to an attorney who offers to help get Laszlo's wife and niece out of Eastern Europe. This is successful, and there's this joyful reunion when the wife and niece, and the wife is played by Felicity Jones, who I really like. And the thing is that Felicity Jones's character is in a wheelchair. Laszlo is being weird toward her and sexually rejecting her, but maybe he's not. I don't know. It's because he's so moody and he's so druggy. Laszlo continues working on the building of this cultural center. Meanwhile, his wife wants to work. She finds out that she can get some work in New York because turns out she's very educated. She speaks English very well. Another important detail is that Laszlo's niece, Zofia, has become mute. It's not really explained why. It's just sort of alluded to, it's because of the harsh conditions, during the war. And so Laszlo is continuing to work on the cultural center. And of course, there are changes to it made without his approval, because the Guy Pearce character doesn't care that much about all the artistic integrity stuff. And then there's some indication that Guy Pearce's son, he's been making some sexual overtures to the mute niece, and it's suggested that he possibly has already assaulted her, though that's not made clear. It's suggested that a lot of what's happening is because there's a lot of disapproval of Laszlo and his relatives because they're Jewish. And Guy Pearce's character, it's suggested, is racist. There's a train wreck. A train has been carrying some materials to build the cultural center. It derails. Some people are killed or injured, and Guy Pearce gets scared off because of all the legal implications of everything. He halts the project. He says, we're not going to do anything because we got to get these problems settled before we go forward. So Laszlo is out of work again. And so he starts working for an architecture company in New York. Then we jump forward a couple of more years, and Guy Pearce's character comes back and lures Laszlo back to Pennsylvania to finish working on this cultural center. Guy Pearce and Laszlo go to Italy to purchase marble. Laszlo has an acquaintance who knows about marble. And then there's this party that ensues afterwards in the town there in Italy. And Laszlo gets very drunk, and so does Guy Pearce. And then, without warning, without explanation, Guy Pearce rapes Laszlo. We see no indication that he has any kind of sexual feelings toward Laszlo, at least none that I could see. They return to the U.S. Apparently nothing's said about it, but Laszlo gets more and more erratic. He blows up at his wife. He blows up at his friend. He just kind of blows up at everybody. And then there's another leap forward in time, I think. The Felicity Jones character is suffering tremendous pain, and she needs these pills. Laszlo can't find the pills. He doesn't know what to do. She's wailing. She's obviously suffering. So he injects her with his heroin, and then they have sex. We don't know what happened with Laszlo's heroin use. Did it deepen into something debilitating? I mean, we see later in the film that he continued to do architecture, so he got by with his addiction, or he got cured of his addiction. We don't know what happened to his friend. There's a friend that he has throughout the movie. It's indicated that the friend is also using heroin, and we don't know, did he get help? Did he, I think at one point he says he's getting help, but it looks like they're heading back down into it. Laszlo's wife, Felicity Jones' character, shows up at Guy Pearce's house and basically says, "You raped my husband." And the thing is, she shows up, she's no longer in a wheelchair. Now she has a walker. No explanation is given as to why she can now walk a little bit. This accusation is met with anger and fury, and the Guy Pearce character runs out of the house and apparently is never seen again. No explanation. And then we jump forward, and suddenly it's 1980, and there is a retrospective going on in Venice of the work of Laszlo, and there are pictures shown of all the wonderful things that he's built. And Laszlo's wife is dead. No explanation. And Laszlo's niece is giving a wonderful speech. Why is she not mute anymore? And see, this was the problem that I have with the movie. This is my frustration with the movie. First of all, let's start at the top. Why did the rape take place? Now, as this man was raping Laszlo, he says things like, "You need to know your place." So I guess the rape is not a sexual act. It's an act of control or something. Or I don't know. No. So next question, why was Laszlo's wife able to walk? Next question, why was Laszlo's niece able to talk? Was she assaulted by the son of Guy Pearce? It's just so many of these things are just loose ends. They're just lying around on the floor. And you start to realize as you watch the movie that you're not in the hands of a master storyteller. You're in the hands of someone who might have just simply forgot what they were talking about. Anyway, this movie left me with far more questions than answers, and I found it very unsatisfying. It's not a terrible film by any means, but it is very imperfect. There is a lot of beauty in the film. Frankly, most of my complaints are rooted in the writing and the fact that I think that the script is weak and unfocused and sprawling. See, I've always been told that when you write a script or any kind of a story, you don't have to include every moment of a character's life, but you should include the most important ones, the moments when the direction of a character's life changes. And I feel like so many of the moments in The Brutalist were talking about these life-changing moments, but they weren't actually showing them. So much was left out. So many of the needs of the audience were ignored. If you saw the movie Steve Jobs, which was written by Aaron Sorkin, I believe that film consisted of 3 rather long scenes, several years apart, depicting important events in the life of Steve Jobs. You're kind of saying, why were these scenes chosen for this movie? And you're watching the scenes very carefully, and you're saying, there's something important in these scenes that I need to know to understand Steve Jobs. And it was kind of a mystery. It was kind of a treasure hunt. And it was a lot of fun because I felt like I was in the hands of someone who really understood the craft. With the Brutalist, I felt like the writer had some good moments, but they were doing a lot of flailing around and leaving things out, not because it was going to serve the audience to hey, here's a mystery to solve, but more just, we just didn't think that was important. Or I don't know, did they forget to include these details? Why was Adrien Brody's character addicted to heroin? And why did he give heroin to his wife? I know it was to alleviate her pain at a certain moment, but what happened after that? Did she descend into drug addiction? Did it kill her? We don't know because it was just dropped. I am sure that there's an essay somewhere that I have not read explaining that the entire story of The Brutalist is an allegory of the mistreatment of a certain person or group of people associated with World War II or associated with, U.S. imperialism. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this if you watched this far. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.